Although this lecture is scheduled for RAR 205, Development of Graphic Skills, but I feel that the way Shalja has explained this lecture extends to many levels. It explains the development of graphic skills, the imbibing of sacred forms, and working on overall compositions. It draws very strong cues into design, urban, placement of forms next to each other, conjunction of spaces, and the dialogue goes on. I am very happy to invite Shailja Sudhakar Bhati from Path Auroville, who has been working in Auroville all her life as an architect and has explored, as is evident from this lecture, much beyond architecture. Welcome, Shalja.
Hi, I'm Shailaja Sudalkar Bhati. I'm here before you as Principal Architect Path, Architects and Planners, Auroville. I was invited by Anand Khatri, to talk to you about calligraphy. So what I will not be doing is going into the technicalities of calligraphy. What I will, however, do is talk about calligraphy as a means of expression and seen from the eyes and spoken with the voice of an architect. When we start our conceptual design is when we first need to really stretch and make ourselves transparent so that we are able to bring whatever needs to come down as in vision. And after that, we really need to work hard to make that vision appropriate to the requirements, to the function, to the climate, to structure, and to the aesthetics. And while doing that, there's a lot of effort that goes into it. And then it goes to the clients, and then it has to be worked on further. So we need to stretch again and become transparent again so as to be able to take inputs from the clients, their aspirations, their visions, and their monetary limitations if there are. And then it goes through to the contractor, to his possibilities and limitations. And sometimes it also goes through the workers. Sometimes when we do this detail or this part of the building, the worker does it in a way which you haven't thought of, and there is space for that. There needs to be space for that. So till the end, from the vision, conceptual vision, till the final materialization, the manifestation of the entire project, there are various stages in which one needs to become quite transparent and allow what needs to come. And in the end, what is in front of you is a teamwork, and it indeed needs to be so, because architecture is not necessary and should not be, is not and should not be a personal expression. It is and should be true to the society and true to the spirit of what is required at that time. And in this way, we architects, although we build up a lot, have to give a lot. And to give a lot, transversely, we need to build up a lot. Now, how do we build? Because very importantly, when we become transparent, what we need not lose. So we need to become transparent, but we don't need to lose. We don't need to lose ourselves. We need to hold on to who we are, to the truth of our being. Now, how do we do that? Because there's a contradictory requirement from us. Yes, in one way we are supposed to forget ourselves and put design in front of us. We need to put other people's aspirations, visions, requirements in front of us, and yet there's something of you that needs to go through, because if it doesn't, then it's not from you. So how does one work with that dichotomy? And what I feel is very important is to find out a firm base on which you can stabilize yourself, a stable base, so that at every time when you're becoming transparent, it's still you who is becoming transparent. It's not just nothing, or it's not something which is not developed. So in developing who you are and in developing such a being which can become transparent, you really need to be very connected with your inner being. And I feel that there's different ways of expression. They could be painting, they could be drawing, they could be now what I'm talking about is calligraphy, are means to be able to develop your inner being. What I will share with you now are my explorations in calligraphy. So, I actually started these explorations in these times, that is, the times of the virus, and when the emotion around is fear. What I first felt was, let me just start with putting in good energy for my friends and for people around me, and of course for myself. And so I said, okay, I'm anyways used to chanting the mantras. Let me start writing them down and sending them, because this is the time of WhatsApp and we keep sending images. So I said, why not, write a mantra and send an image? And then again, why mantra? Because somehow Sanskrit by itself, ever since I've heard this language, has kind of come to me in bits and snippets of the epics of Mahabharata and Ramayana and Kalidasa and the different shlokas and mantras. And each time, like, I've heard Sanskrit since my childhood probably, but what I remember is when it was introduced in school, and it immediately appealed to me as a language, and intuitively I felt that this is a language which holds a lot of secrets. Being an Indian, I think it holds, it's a treasure, I believe, of a lot that we need to learn from our origins. And mantra is something which is not written, it is something which is not intuitively thought out, it is not something that has been inspired and then written. It's not an inspired writing, it's not an intuitive writing. It is something that does not even cross the mental plane. It is something which is seen. So some of the very special beings or people of our past, who we call the rishis, they were also known as kavis or drashtas. Those are the ones who could see this. So they saw this mantra and they brought it down, and between seeing and bringing down there was absolutely no distortion. So what has come to us is purest form and a very strong form. And so I have a lot of faith in its strength and power. I'm sure Anand, who has done more detailed study of calligraphy and different writings, will be able to tell you more about it. Mine is more an intuitive way towards going ahead with it, and that's what I will maintain today in our talk. So this is the first mantra that I wrote, which is about health, happiness, and goodness for everybody. And then what I did was, I put a motif with it, which is my own doodle. So, we have a tendency to keep doodling, and our doodles do change from time to time, but there's something that remains constant. And right now I was doodling this. So I thought this is my expression of today here, and this is a mantra for everybody, and I put it forward. Now, as an architect, and as you would also see, we always see that the proportion, maybe this could have been longer, this is a bit more rounded, why don't I make it longer? So then I said, okay, let me try it in a different way, and then I'll show you the next form of it. So this is the next one. Here I have worked further on my doodle, and then I made the lettering longer. And then I took a picture of it and I started evaluating it and seeing, maybe this line is something that is kind of creating a lot of limitation for me. I know the Sanskrit alphabet well. I know I'm not going to, make a bha into a ma or vice versa. So why don't I, keep myself free from this line? And so I added the very next one, free from that line, and with the motif as before. So what came here was, I said, why don't I start working with my sketchbook? And when I opened my sketchbook, I found my doodles from a year ago. And I said, well, I'm not the same as a year ago, but okay, let me see what I can do with these. So here is a doodle from a year ago, and which I have reworked on today with what I feel flows today. And this is what comes up with it. And this is the mantra without the line on the top, which I have made myself free from. Now, as you can see very clearly from this composition, that there's a lot of competition between the motif and the writing, and that this kind of balance is yet to achieve. But as the mantra itself suggests, Purnamada Purnamidam, we are complete at any point that we are in. And this is something very important which I feel each one of us needs to remember, is that we judge ourselves just too harshly and just too soon, and we are not able to appreciate the place that we are in at the moment. And so I feel, just like this mantra suggests, and what doodling does, is allows us to be in the moment and appreciate the being in the now. So I will show you the next one after this. So this is the one after, where you see that there is a balance in the motive and the writing. So the motive follows a certain pattern and a certain chant, and the background becomes this, which is the Hanuman Chalisa, and which I also, when I was doing this calligraphy, I was also remembering people and letting the meaning of this chant reach them. And this is my way of, spreading what I feel is possible from my place where I am. And this way we go ahead, and then I started doing the Mahamrityunjaya Mahamantra, which is a very special one and my most favorite mantra. So what I did was, I thought, let me make a motive, let me do the mantra. Again, as you see, a lot of competition between the two, and I said, okay, I need to balance. So this is the Mahamrityunjaya Mahamantra, which I feel has a lot of balance between what is the foreground and what is the background. There is a proportion between. And I must say that this being handwork, it's a chance that it may come. It may even not come, one has to accept what comes, because sometimes it's the hand that leads you, sometimes it's the mantra that leads you, sometimes it's the mind. Like there are different parts of your being and beings without which are leading you, and what comes out is sort of a surprise. And that's true of all handwork, I believe. And then you could see this one. This is the mantra in the very beginning, which I was talking about, for the well-being, the health, the well-being and the goodness for all. So here also I have something in the foreground, and then at the background another chant continues at an angle. So then this whole thing becomes as a visual piece of art. And then what I started working on is something that we need to work on in architecture itself, is that when we have different words, or let's say we have different buildings, how is the space between them organized? How does one thing lead to the other and respond to the next? How does one edge of a building respond to the other building coming or not, and so on? And you can see that can happen in letters as well. So then what I have done here now is to remove the distance between the lines of the mantra, or even between the words of the mantra, and make this whole as a complete piece of, one piece of art, and not lines, not different words, and it works as a whole. So with that idea, here you come, you see this as a whole, and then there's a kind of a force that can move around. Now this, what happens in the background depends a lot upon what kind of doodling that you do also. This is a mantra from Bhagavad Gita about Karma Yoga, and at the background is a chant about Krishna. Of course, it depends upon what language you feel connected to. It does not have to be Sanskrit only, although I do feel that Sanskrit has a lot of power, and just writing it can, unleash that power for you. But that's really up to you to decide. You can even do English calligraphy, and then you can have a background of a write-up of your own. These which I showed you up till now, and yes, one more, and that's this one. So this is Hanuman Chalisa, the entire Hanuman Chalisa at the back, and this is particularly done for my little boy. He is a boy of 8, and I have introduced him to Hanuman Chalisa since a few years, because I feel that some sort of chants really help you to not just connect yourself to yourself, but also connect yourself to those forces of protection which are around you. They just open the door. The forces of protection are always around you, but when you chant something, when you remember something, the doors open, the connection becomes stronger. So I was thinking, since he started sleeping in his own room, that there must be some in some way that I write Hanuman Chalisa on the wall next to his bed. And I was thinking what kind of size I should go for. Will the entire Chalisa come on one paper? And I had this thought in my mind. And then when I was clearing up the house, because this is the time of lockdown, we can clear up our spaces, I found this painting of his. What you see on the backdrop, these little dots, I suppose he has made either with his fingers or with brush, when he was 5 years old. And instead of throwing the paper, I said, wait, this is a background made by this boy. Can I write on that what I need for him, for his own feeling of safety? And so I wrote this. And as I told you, when you start, it's a surprise. So I didn't know whether the entire chant will come on this, or whether it will be extra, small, whatever. And I kept on writing, and you see, it's just perfect. You just start from here, you end here, the paper, space. So there is, and this is for any creation, whether it be calligraphy, whether it be painting or drawing or even architecture for that matter, you just need to start and have a direction. And once you have that, the process takes over and leads you. And that is also what I would like to reinforce here in our talk, is that process is important. Let us not always think of products. So it was at this point when I put up all these pictures on Facebook and Anand asked me to give a talk on this. At that time, I started rationalizing and reasoning out my entire intuitive process, because until now it was just intuitive. It was just for myself, or for a prayer to be sent to my close and dear ones. I had not thought of really talking about this, but now that I had to talk about it, I thought, okay, let me think further on what it is all about. And then what I've just talked to you came about. And then I asked my friends on Facebook to send me their doodles. So what came through from Facebook, from my different friends, are all these doodles. So these are doodles by different friends, and they have sent me these. You see the different styles of the people. And what I did was to bring to you an idea that let us associate our doodles with what we believe in. Now, why are doodles so important? Now, doodles are the only time that we don't stress out and write or stress out and draw. They mostly happen when we are not even fully attentive. When the lecture is going on, that's the time we doodle, so that we are, present in the moment. Or when a telephone rings and there's a sketch pad and a pencil lying around while talking to somebody, you are drawing there. So it's not really your mind that's making you draw. It's other parts of your being which we are not really consciously aware of, which come through. And it is not just a coincidence that your doodles keep transforming as you keep transforming, from where you were into where you are now. And that, I feel, is a form of yourself which is most true, most joyful, delightful. You've done something without self-criticism, without analysis. And you know how difficult it is to draw a line on a piece of paper where the lecturer is going to see it, because every line that we draw is critiqued upon. Why is this line here? Why is it like this? Why is it not like that? And oh my God, is there such a stress to draw? But a doodle, well, it's something joyful. And when you're joyful, when you're fully present in a different way, when your hands are moving and your mind not too much, not too less, I think that's the time when your being is speaking out. That's the time when something comes out through you, which is you and not you. And one can keep talking about these, but what I feel is that this is a little true part of you. So why don't we take this little true parts of us which are always on the corners of notebooks or on the back of the papers and hidden away in sketch pads. Why don't we bring them out in the front? We focus on them and we celebrate them, and we celebrate the we who are at that point when we drew it, because at each point, as I mentioned before, we are complete, and let us celebrate that completeness. So what I did here was, in order to bring to you the idea that how you can start your own calligraphy with your own doodle, because each of us has a particular writing, we can change it, we can work on it, we have a way of doodling, we can work on that as well consciously now and connect the two, and this is a way you can start doing your own calligraphy. So I have a few examples here which I have worked on to bring to you this idea. There's one more thing about calligraphy. See, calligraphy, as you can very clearly see from these expressions here, is not something which is dissociated. So you draw something, something else emerges from there, and things start emerging, and then you start celebrating, and so on and so forth. You see, each of the doodles, there's something that happens and something else that comes as a response to it, and something else. So it all is a kind of a continuation, as well as a sensitivity and respect to the spaces which we call in architecture as negative spaces, and which I totally believe are not negative, need to be made positive. We forget that when we do our architecture, and we don't forget that while doodling. So this is one more reason why I think we should bring the doodles up there in front. And now if we take one doodle by the other, let's say we take this one, and what I've done is taken a part of this which you see here, and this is how I have translated it into calligraphy. So you see the parts here, and these are those green lines, and what I've done is really use the pens which are available right now in the lockdown. Whatever means at hand are fine. What needs is an intention to just do something with it. So then this is almost like a site given to you, in architecture. And then what do you do on that really depends upon the shape of the paper, the colors of the site. The background gives rise to what comes in front, and not just the background. For instance, this is a doodle by a young architect, and I know she's finding herself. So here is a mantra, Aham Brahmasmi, which is like a path to finding yourself. The other example on this is this one. So based on this doodle by a friend of mine, I have done this calligraphy. This is a mantra which reminds me a lot about her, because she's somebody who likes to put people together, bring people together in positive way. So this is a mantra about bringing people together, Sahana Vavatu Sahana Bhunaktu. And then what I've done is I've just translated her lines into a chant. As in architecture, so in art, there are 200 ways of doing it at least. What I have brought to you is just one way of translating a doodle into a calligraphy. You can do it in any other way. There are different ways of doing it. You can explore, take your own initiative and your own interest in doing that. The next one here is this one, and a very simple way in which I have brought it on the way to calligraphy is this. As I mentioned before, just one of the ways of doing it. This is what came to me. So this is a mantra. Also this was done at the time when she was meditating for the health of her loved one. And this is a chant also for the health. So I have kind of put these together. And there's one last picture which I will show you, which I've taken from this doodle here. So from this doodle here, again, this is a very young architect. She works with me. And I've taken her doodle here, made it on my sketch pad, and just put mantras from the Bhagavad Gita about, how the light illumines and removes the ignorance from inside. She's also somebody who's finding herself. So I've just tried to find an appropriate mantra for her. So this is the way in which one can, start doodling. If one has not started, continue doodling. Bring it to the front in your life and turn it into calligraphy, a form of expression that brings your most true expression at that point, in a way that is most suitable at that time, with the instruments that are available to you, and which is entirely joyful, entirely not judgmental, and entirely free. I have shown you these as examples of how you can start, combining your own little doodles to your chant, whatever you believe in, whether whichever language it is, connect the two joyfully. How simple actually it is to do it, that you don't need anything very specific to start calligraphy. You can start with the means and the instruments that you have right now at your disposal, with the paper that you have with you, any size. How important it is to, bring that part of you in front, which is free, joyful, non-judgmental, flowing. And I feel we need to live more in that. We need to live more in the present. We need to be more in that state of being where we are joyful, we are productive, we are creative, and we identify ourselves with the process and not the product, and we respect the process at every point. So all the best to start your own calligraphy, to start your own way of expressing who you are, and don't keep it hidden from yourself. Put it out there in front, stick it on the walls in front of you, put it on your notebooks, put it on your tag boards, next to your bed on the wall, put it where you can see it, because that was a true form of you that you could rely on in times of stress, in times of having to be transparent. This is what you can hold on. This is the base that I was talking of in the beginning, the base that you form, on which you can firmly stand, hold your own, be joyful, be present, and be wide and creative. Thank you.
And this was a very wonderful lecture, Shalja. I must congratulate you on the depth that you had achieved in this lecture. There is a very significant demonstration of techniques in intuition, the use of intuition in design, and a very illustrated emphasis on how to use forms across scales, the use of old sketchbooks. There are demonstrations of synergy in the use of mantra and form and composition. There definitely is a great energy in chants and mantras. The language carries the cultural energy, the cultural memory, and so much of landscapes in it. And all this has been demonstrated in your talk. The remembrances of people and converting memory into compositions and energy used by almost all evolved art forms is demonstrated here. The most important aspect of this lecture was the use of involuntary doodles as a design resource. We must try to use the involuntary part of ourselves to connect to our designs, to become free, joyful, non-judgmental, and flowing, and henceforth bring forth the process that overtakes the design and brings joy in the path of creativity.